Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, over me hills to Pokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. Talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. If wherever you are, when listening to people in Liberia, you hear about LEC, electricity, or energy. Some say the heat, mosquitoes, and everything else. For a long time now, there has been issue with electricity, and people are even saying that we have entered an energy crisis. So if we talk about Liberia's energy crisis, what is it? And what are some of the possible solutions? With me to discuss this, first, before I welcome our guest, let me introduce my co-host, someone who knows a thing or two about electricity. He was right there in on Bushra Island when the rebels hit, and he was on Prince Johnson base. Let me welcome Jimmy Eastman. Welcome, Jimmy.
Yeah, we were the last man standing when they came in and captured us. It's a pleasure to be here with my former boss, Chris Neyor. I know we have some interesting to talk about.
Thank you. And let me welcome, it's an honor to have Mr. Christopher Neyor, who needs no introduction, but I will do it anyway. Mr. Neyor is, when we talk about Liberia's energy, that's the person we want to talk to. He is the former president and CEO of the Moe Energy Group, an energy consulting and investment company based in Monrovia, Liberia, with offices in Texas and Ghana. He's also previously senior advisor to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf on energy, environment, and climate. I want to let you know that Mr. Neyor was the youngest managing director ever of the Liberia Electricity Corporation, LEC. That was before the start of the Liberia Civil War in 1987. And I remember that quite well. Mr. Neyor, it's an honor to have you. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me also mention that Mr. Neyor is a fellow alum from Monrovia College. I remember I was in 11th grade when he came and took over LEC. And let me say thank you. You became a very big inspiration. I know on Friday when you come to talk to us. And because of you, I decided to, and other things, but you inspired me to go and do electrical engineering at LU. Sorry to disappoint you. I didn't finish the work.
So you're
But,
doing pretty well where you are.
but thank you very much, and we are honored to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
This is your first time on Focus on Liberia. I want to give you a big glass of water here and say welcome and make FOL your home.
Thank you. I accept that.
We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. And let us start. I spoke a little bit about Mr. Neyor. Mr. Neyor, I want us to start like this. Just a little bit about yourself, that anything that I left out, and particularly, what drives you? What are some of those things, your life philosophy, how you look at life, and those things that drive you to be who you are today and to pursue the kind of things that you are talking about today?
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be on your show. And I look forward to an interesting discussion on some of the pressing issues facing our country, especially in the area of energy, where I have some expertise. But who am I? What constitutes my life philosophy? Once a person's personal experience inform their worldview. So who I am today is a kind of summation of my life experiences. And the particular one I like to mention that inform my worldview is that on finishing high school, I've had a tutorial of my class, and we talk, we want to talk about the problems that beset our country, how we can correct them. So I graduated from high school from Neyor College. I've had a tutorial of my class in 1977. I became an honor student at the University of Liberia. I want to do engineering, electrical, but at that time, there was no engineering program at the University of Liberia. And so I started to major in physics. Like a lot of my friends and colleagues of the day, they major in physics or mathematics, and then look for the opportunity to go abroad to do electrical engineering or whatever engineering you wanted to do. And so LEC decided to recruit students to send abroad for engineering school. I applied. And I waited and waited. There was no response. I went back to check and said there was no response from me. And mind you, I was a top science student, top science student in the 70s at the University of Liberia. Applied to LEC for electrical engineering scholarship. And they couldn't give me one. Because at that time, nobody knew who Chris Neyor was. And so I went to my father in Jonesville, where my parents had settled when they came from Riverside. And I told him that I wanted to do engineering. He told me, son, if I had the money, you would be in America now to do engineering. He said, I don't have it, but if you want to go to America for engineering school, you will go. I will pray for you. And he prayed for me. My father's a Methodist minister. And so on my way back to town, a thought just came to me. Gabriel Johnson Tucker was then the Minister of Public Works and chairman of the board of LEC. And that thought came to me and said, why don't you write it? And I wrote in a letter in my own penmanship and attached my grade sheet from the University of Liberia, 2-semester grade sheet. And I took it to his office then at the Ministry of Public Works on Main Street. I got there early that morning. It was my day off when I didn't have classes. My classes were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I believe I went there on a Tuesday. And took the letter to his secretary. And I gave it to her. I said, I brought this letter for the minister. And she looked at it and she said, what? She opened it, looked at it, and said, what, young man, you want to wait or you want to come back? I said, I will wait. She said, okay, I will give it to the minister. So you go in the sitting room and wait. Not that number one, that why I inform you. His secretary, the gatekeeper, can make or break a person, a minister, or whoever is in charge. That woman, if she had put my letter to the minister in the trash bag or put it in a place that the minister didn't see it, I wouldn't be speaking on this forum now. And that informed my worldview in life later on when I work with my chief of staff, my executive assistant, my secretary. Do not make decisions for me. When people write me for any critical matter, let it reach my desk. Let me make the decision. Don't make decision for me. That's one of my worldview. And then Gabriel Tucker, I waited until about 12 o'clock and he came out of the office walking with a colleague of his. And I saw my letter in his hand. And his sitting room was filled with a lot of people who went to see him. And my heart was pounding when I saw my letter in the minister's hand. He came and escorted his friend to the door, and then he turned around. And he said, who is Christopher Neyor? And I put my hand up, dry, skinny, little young man. And in the middle of the floor, he said, Dad, you making all these grades? You got brains. He said, where have you been? And LEC giving all these foolish people scholarship. He said, we're sending you to America. And just like that. And he went by in the office and said, wait for me, I'm coming. And he saw people. And when he went by to the office, then you see genuineness of our people. The people in our living room were so elated. And some of them had tears in their eyes. Said, oh, God, thank you. I wish you could talk to my son. I wish you could talk to my nephew or to my grandchild. Those that you have to be prepared. Because opportunity comes to those who are prepared. Mm-hmm. I was all A student, physics, chemistry, you name it, math. It was all A's. And the minister said, then you made A, everything that you made A in PE, you know. So he took me to LEC, and to cut a long story short, that's how I got a scholarship. And then he took me to LEC and put my letter on the desk of the managing director and said, look, I have vetted this young man. I don't want to get it run around. Put him on a scholarship. I want to see him on the next batch to go abroad for school. And he walked out. I never saw Gabriel Tucker again until I graduated from college and came back to Liberia. He was in the States then. But I saw that, I said, wow. And when I came back later, became managing director at LEC, that became part of my worldview. Scholarship, not only to give scholarship, but to deserving students. Yeah. And so at the LEC, all of those that were granted scholarship were deserving, whether they were in-house at the LEC that were given scholarship, or whether those were recruited from outside. Everyone was deserving of a scholarship. And at the National Oil Company, that's another thing I initiated, the 1512 scholarship program. Because what happened in our country is when one gets into office, he tends to give scholarship to people that he knows or people from his tribe. I didn't practice that. I decided to launch a scholarship so that we could have students from all over the country. 15 counties. We took 2 students from each county to go abroad for graduate school. Because I wanted in the future National Oil Company of Liberia that when anyone looked at the management, you see a representation of every county and every tribe. So it was deliberate. And I had at my forefront every morning Psalm 327. Withhold not good from whom it is due when it is in the power of your hands to do so. And that's what constitutes me in my life philosophy, how we can correct the ills of the past. Today, a lot of people give contracts and scholarship based on who you know, based on travel affiliation. That's not Chris Neyor. I try to live away from that and take that life experience that I had with Gabriel Tucker, his secretary, and my father as a minister. Withhold not good from whom it is due when it is in the power of your hands to do so. When you take money that doesn't belong to you as a custodian of our common wealth, that which belongs to all, and you take it for your personal news or for your family news, that you withhold it good from whom it is due. When you withhold scholarship from a brilliant student who has studied hard, and his parents struggled to send him to school, and he graduated summa cum laude, and you get a scholarship to the less deserving. When you take a job and give it to somebody less qualified, and those who have been trained and qualified for it, you are withholding good from whom it is due. That's my life philosophy. It's a little low, but I just want to give you the background so you can know where I come from.
Thank you, and that's very good to know. I could see Jimmy, and I'm getting even feedback from those watching. Say, "Wow, what a story!" And yeah, I see. You know, when you came back, young man, one morning they were interviewing you, and you had your two hands in your pocket, jeans, and we look at ourselves and say, "Wow, I want to be like that when I grow up." So that's an inspiring story. So you wrote a paper. I mean, you've been talking about energy, the genesis of Liberia's continuous power outages and the overlooked solutions. I read that and I said, we need to talk about this. Today, we want to start some of the things we want to talk about to do an assessment of the current functionality of LEC. What is this LEC? What does it look like? Could there be some improvements here and there? Is renewable energy feasible? Should there be a separate strategy for these different things? And so let me start by saying for you to just describe for us the current landscape when it comes to LEC. How does it look like?
And go over that again, and my apologies.
You talk about the Liberia energy crisis. So I want you to just give us a picture of our current situation when it comes to energy.
Okay. I tell you, it's a challenging situation that we have now, but it has been like that for a very long time. It has been getting progressively worse. But the power of inadequate power supply has been there from the very beginning, and like I in my publication. And when I came back and worked at the LEC, was in the planning department, and then I became technical assistant to the managing director. Then I became deputy managing director for technical services before I became managing director. So I always tell people you learn from the bottom. Nowadays, a lot of the young people just want to get at the top automatically. It's a disservice to yourself and to the country. You have to build experience from the bottom. But I observed the problem from the very inception of the LEC. The Public Utility Authority, the PU, are doing those days. And what have happened is that you have the mining concessions that were coming up in the 60s. At the same time that the mine coffee plant was being built. Now, what have occurred in more countries, the planners, they sit and say, look, these mines, because when the mining concessions come in, they don't want to have power generation as part of their operation. Their core business is mining.
Right.
And they prefer to get a power from the utility that is available. But without any utility, in the negotiation with those concession, Limco, BMC, LN, OC, and all of the mining companies, Limco, they were allowed to produce their own power. And that's where the whole problem started from. And then you had a river, the St. Paul River, that has a 1,000 megawatt potential on it. All you have to do is build a reservoir on it to store the water. During the rainy season, we have a huge flow of water. But during the dry season, our river dries out. And so it's better to have a reservoir where you store the water and release the water during the dry season to produce power. But building a reservoir is expensive. So you have to justify that construction financially. They have to do the economic and financial analysis. For the project to be bankable, you have to find means to pay for this project. And what happened in a lot of other countries like Ghana, the Volta River Authority was linked to a aluminum plant, huge aluminum plant. And they called it offtake to justify the project. We didn't do that. We allowed the mining concessions to generate their own power like they are doing today. And then we decided to build a hydro just for the resident of Monrovia, at that time, very small resident. And then we started going to the World Bank, to the US and others to help us finance and the development of Mankofi Hydro. And the bank asked, how are you going to pay for it? And we point to Monrovia. And the population could not justify paying for that. But we had the justification right there, the mining concessions that were taking a lot of power. Let me tell you that before the Syria conflict, Liberia had a total of 413 megawatts of power. LEC had about half of those. The other half, more than low half, 215 megawatts was the mining concessions. Just imagine the hydro were built and you are supplying 215, 225 megawatts to the mining concessions. What that would mean. So we built a run-of-river hydro. Run-of-river means there's no reservoir, so you run it during the rainy season. You have a good capacity to feed your residential customer, primary offices, and commercial. That's all. And then during the rainy season, you have adequate power to supply everybody, small population, small businesses, because the mining concessions were taking care of themselves. But when the dry season came in, you didn't have power to do that. So they put in diesel generators, gas turbine at Mankofi, at Bushore. That's how the Bushore plant came about. It was just a mistake, just poor planning.
Right.
And I attacked that right away when from the planning department at LEC, I look at that.
Mr. Neyor, I understand that was like what, 50, 60 years ago?
Yeah, but what happened, we are still making the same mistake. It is still happening today.
It happened 60 years ago, so why have we not corrected it since then?
Because we have not had the political will to do it. The solution is there. And look, I look at that. I was energy advisor with President Selly. We look at that when she in her first term. We set up a task force to build a Mankofi hydro and also to attach it to the mining concessions that were coming back online. The China Union, Asele Mata, we have presentations with them. We presented it to Brazil. President Lula, he accepted it to help us fund it. He sent in Odebrecht, the major hydro construction company. But it's just got lost somewhere in between and that, and we still have the same problem today. It's a lack of political will, unfortunately. And when we started our task force, the current head of LEC, Morning Captain, was on our task force representing the Chamber of Commerce. And we have uh, business, civil society all on that to tackle this problem. But we just dropped the ball and did not do that. So the mining concessions now have their own power again and going down that same route. And then we want to, and one opportunity came about.
Mr. Neyor, we'll get into it because I want to know what the problems are and the solution. But let me bring in Jimmy as we continue to lay the groundworks, because even people are asking, okay, why you didn't build a dam and all that. But Jimmy, let me bring you in as we first lay the groundworks, and we'll get deep into
Let me
it.
just add this last one. Let me add this one quickly.
Okay.
To that, one of the opportunities we had that came on a silver platter was a WAP. The WAP transmission line was being built. It just started the 2007, 2008, and we foresaw that. And we said, look, let's build a hydro, and we can justify the investment in that with the WAP transmission line to export the power to neighboring countries. And that was a great opportunity. Unfortunately, we did not pursue that. So what is happening now? We are using a WAP line to import power rather than the opportunity for us to export power. So that's what happened to us when we don't execute, when we don't have the political will to execute plan that experts give, or that will solve our problem permanently and afford electricity throughout the country.
Okay, and I will ask you later on what this political will means and why will people not have it. But Jimmy, let me bring you in.
Yes, Chris, thanks a lot for that historic account. And I see we have some of our audience asking questions, so I will just reiterate what Chris said. To get the money to build these huge infrastructure investment, a reservoir costs an exorbitant amount of money, and the banks will not give you that money until you establish how you will pay it back. So just like Mr. Neyor said, what they did in Ghana, they attach their dam, their whole project to the sale of power to the aluminum company. Likewise, we should have attached our cost and our ability to pay back to the mining concessions that were coming up at the time. We failed to do that. And then the opportunity came again the other day with the West African power pool, that it was going to be erected to provide power throughout West Africa. We could have used that as a form of method to show that we can and are able to pay back a loan if we can build a big reservoir. But again, we missed the boat. So given the situation, Chris, what do we do now that we are where we at this junction? What's the next step? I've heard of we using rural electrification, dividing that from the on-grid and off-grid methods of providing power. But what do we do given the situation we find ourselves in right now?
Look, we are in the age of climate change, so we have to go renewable, and hydro is part of that renewable process, and so it gives us incentive to pursue that route. And so what do we do? Well, there's a need for power within the entire region, and so if we can have the wherewithal to, and let me just tell you this. Let me just say this. Oftentimes we do not take into account local and regional expertise. We believe in the expertise of the World Bank or people who come from abroad. And more often, we all go to the same institutions abroad. We learn the same thing, and some of us learn much more than they did, with more experience, with greater or higher honor. But there's a tendency to listen to these people, and they don't give you permanent solution. They give solution based on their their own understanding of what it could be. So we have to use local expertise from our local experience to solve some of these problems. So we have to look at the WAP from a regional perspective so that we can do the hydro. I see they try to do piecemeal again, and as a small portion of it, it will be the same mistake. We have to do the via storage project upstream of the St. Paul River, up in Lofat. The Via River has a bigger catchment area. There's a diversion dam that should be built, and that project should be a billion plus. And when you hear the sound of the money, it's large. But once you put in place the opportunity to sell that power within a WAP transmission line, it makes a project bankable. So we have to look at that, but that is in the long term. In the short term, what do we do to augment the dry season power? The solar map is an alternative, and I see that is being pursued. But it has to be pursued on a large scale. We need to put up minimum about 50 megawatt of solar farm within the Mount Coffee area, so that the dry season will have tremendous amount of heat. You use the heat to produce electricity, and then you augment the supply with because of the low level of water. So that those are some of the solutions we should pursue. And not only doing it, but you have to execute. One of the problems we have is that we put things on paper, and we have what we call what I call a paralysis or redundant analysis. All we do is analyze. Then consultants come to analyze. Every time we have consultants that come in, when are we going to execute? That's what we need to do. In Liberia, I say that after all is said and done, there is more said than done. For me, I like to see situation where after all is said and done, there is more done than said. So we need to execute rather than analyzing and making plan. We need to take the plan and execute it. And to do that, you have to have the political willpower to pursue them.
What
How you do
does that mean?
by getting the proper expertise in place for such to be done.
Yeah, you stress political will. What does it mean? And why would people not have and you give an example of President Salif. Why would President Salif not have the political will?
What the political will does not want to mean the president. Let me just make that clear. It's a whole political machinery. The cabinet, the ministers, and all of those and that are in line position, in decision making position, and that's where the lack of political will comes from. The president has to appoint people and depend on the people to make some vital decision. But unfortunately, there are people coming from different backgrounds. They have their own understanding and their own motives, their own motivation. And so that becomes a problem. So especially when we put a team together, there are some who downplay expert recommendation. And again, we need to get away from that, where we can change the course of our country. And how do we do that? Engagement like this, civil society being involved, and you have to hold the feet of the leadership to the fire, so to speak. Because when you sit and say nothing, do nothing, and you have the same old thing every time from one administration to another administration, because it becomes a cultural thing. It becomes systemic, and we need to change that in order to move the country forward.
And Mr. Neyor, I really enjoy what you are saying. I like what you are saying. But someone will say, but Mr. Neyor, you were there from Deputy of Technical Services to Managing Director of LEC. You were also advisor to President Sirleaf on energy and energy. You also went to so you have all this opportunity. What happened? Why you didn't do what you were telling us to do now?
That's a very good question. There's a big difference between a line position. A line position is where you make the decision and you execute and you get things done.
Like
there's a line decision and also the what you call staff position, which is like an advisory position. When you're an advisor, you are a consultant. You are not a decision maker. You are analyst. You pass information to the decision maker. And within the organizational structure, when you talk about the anatomy of decision, in the West, where we are trained, the analysts play a key role in decision making because they provide information to the decision maker. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, the decision maker try to make their decision outside of experts' analysis and inadequate information. And when you do that, you always come up with wrong decision and decisions that are costly, decision like what we have now with our power situation. So you have to have good analysts in place. Over the years, we are trained so many people across the energy sector, and we still training more of them. They are around. Some of them are in the diaspora. This is the time now to tap into the expertise so that they can contribute to a holistic solution, to a sustainable solution, rather than going the political way. Because at the end of the day, the politicians do not achieve anything. They have their own agenda. So we have to move away from that. We have to become nationalistic and look out for what is best for our country. You talk about electricity. Businesses want to come in, and not every company that want to produce their own power. They get discouraged. No, if I gotta produce my own power, I will not invest. So power availability, power reliability, power affordability is an incentive for investment. And that is known all around the world. But we don't take it to be serious. And that's the problem we have. Now, as for what I have done over the years,
especially when you were
at LEC, yeah. For example, at LEC, one of the things that was done when we came in, there was tremendous power tap. You're talking about commercial losses. I knew very well that to attract the type of investment to do man coffee and everything, we had to reduce power theft. And I introduced a method system within the LEC that we reduce power theft by 75%. At the time of the Civil War coming in, power theft was around 5%. It was a tremendous intervention. We start with people. You see, once you get people and you start with, you got to set an example. I told them, you don't require so much from your people in terms of honesty and integrity. Then when you buy material, you buy conductor, you buy transformer, you're taking money from under the table, you're getting kickback, and you pass in and now you pass to the level need man to get your envelope. Once you get compromised like that, the meter readers are there, and all of those people in the field, they do theirs too, because everybody is compromised. But when you set the example, it's a difference. And I ask people, why everywhere that Chris Neyor headed, there was zero corruption? And the records are there. At LEC, when I did zero corruption. At the National Oil Company, during my tenure, zero corruption. That in itself is a contribution to our country. And then also you look at when I was LEC, what some of the things that I initiated. And the West Africa Power Pool, we had the UPDA that were based in Ivory Coast at that time. The Union of Producer and Conveyor of Electric Energy in Africa. The head of the Ivorian Electricity Corporation, Kone BDA, and I worked closely together to expand that to the rest of Africa. I campaigned for Lionel Keller in Liberia to become Secretary General of that organization back there before the Civil War. And so the WAP you see there now, and which comes from the West Africa, the ECOWAS Energy Protocol, I contributed tremendously at that, especially when I was lecturing at the Center for Energy and Environment at the University of Pennsylvania. Those are some of the work that I did to help develop the West Africa Energy Protocol, which gave way to the West Africa Gas Pipeline and the West Africa Power Pool. So those are some of my work that is now being successful, that is connected, part of our connectiveness within the region, which is very, very important for our economic development.
And before Jimmy come in, let me ask the question that Adma is asking. So at that time you were at LEC, why you didn't build a dam? Just like you described in your paper, have it from the top, right? From Lofa all the way, you build small dams until you get to Monrovia. Why you didn't do that as head of LEC?
At that time, with all the mining concession, bomb mines flourishing, the Lamco, there was no bankable justification to get the money to build a dam. It was just not there. What we needed to do was to make sure that we got the mining concessions on board, so that they could
be our customer.
What we call retire their generators over time, because to build the hydro dam, it takes about 4 or 5 years. So that negotiation was going on so that they could retire their plants within certain number of years while the hydro was being built, while the dam was being built, so they could switch over to the hydro power. But the Civil War came, and unfortunately, we didn't get to that. But that was a plan that was in the making.
Jimmy?
Yeah, Chris, you just mentioned something that it apparently has been plaguing LEC of recent, and that is power theft. And in fact, there is talk going around now by using distribution line, privatize the distribution lines, and then you will not have to worry about power theft. That has been talked around. People continually talking there that we should privatize the distribution. What are your thoughts on that? And how can we address the serious power theft that they are plagued with today?
Well, look, the entire power system is deregulated, and so to speak, and that's why you have the regulatory agency. In fact, that's the president of the African Development Bank, when he started his new deal for energy in Africa. That's what I advise him to stress the regulatory system. And when you have the regulator, then it's part of decentralization. So you have a separate generation, you have transmission, and you have distribution. You don't want all to be in one. It's inefficient, and so I agree fully with privatization of the distribution system, because when you do that, I think that's a way you can also reduce power theft. Because if Jimmy, you and I took Bushel Island as a private entity, we invested in it and took that area, we'll be there in the night, we'll be at every horse corner, and we have our some old boss, we're training, working for them. We'll have police officer. We'll make sure nobody see our power because that's our livelihood. So you work through people. It's pure and simple. Who are the people doing the power test? Sometimes some of the LEC people they go disconnect, they put the pass around and go and disconnect it. When I was at LEC, when I set up the incentive, I I increased meter reader salary to $500 a month. The records are there, and everyone were on their P's and Q's. I fired entire crew just like that who were dishonest. And and the whole place got straightened up during my tenure. Because you have to set the example. You have to like Jerry Rawlings, what made him to be successful in Ghana because he was zero corruption. Paul Kagame in Rwanda, zero corruption. Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, zero corruption. When you get to power and all you want to do is to transform your people and leave a legacy for them, you don't tolerate corruption. You public service is public service. You don't go there to get rich. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, in fact, that's why I don't want people think I want government job or I want LEC. Why I'm making more money in the private sector? Why I do it to go make 17,000, 20,000 a month? One can make millions a year. So that's a big difference. I have served, I've done my part, and I'm in the private sector doing very well. But people take the public sector to create wealth. The, in our other places, the business people are wealthy. The foreigners, the Lebanese, the Indians, they are our middle class. They are the business people. We all want to do to get a government job and get money under the table and fight each other, lie on each other for government job. No, I'm done with that. I want to help the country to move forward. This corruption, we got to get rid of it in our country in order to move forward. So power theft, the underlying reason for power theft is corruption. If you have leadership, I can tell you this. If you have leadership that are very sincere to change LEC, to change our country, and have zero corruption, things will get better in our country. I can tell you that.
Lay out for me that structure that because right now it appears that LEC will create, the energy, distribute it, and I don't know if they are regulating themselves as well. So pin me a picture of how it should look. He says somebody else should be distributing it.
What the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission, they are the referee, and that's where the African Development Bank has been investing a lot of money in the development regulatory system, just like I advised them. And so that is now catching up around the continent where you have these regional power pools. Just like in America, you have every number of states have a power pool. It's all over the country. So the whole country is interconnected with power pool. And that's why if one place has a problem with generator, you get power from another source. So we need to have the regulator strengthened. There's a young man who is coming in as the head of that agency, the regulatory agency, and I believe he's sharp, he's smart, and he will take hold of it, and so that he can be a real regulator. Because once that happened in the past, I think LEC being the 64,000-pound gorilla in the room, kind of try to bully the regulatory agency. So instead of the regulator regulating, the LEC dominate them because it's bigger and more powerful. So we need to change that. So with a strong regulatory agency, then it can have a very good division of generation, transmission, and distribution. And that was also what that will encourage. Once we contain power theft, then we can encourage um, independent power producers, those who come and build generation like solar farm. There are people who have called me interested in doing 50 megawatt solar farm or 75, 100 megawatt. So we can do that easily when we create that environment, that enabling environment on the ground to attract this type of investment. And what they do, they create jobs, they create, and when you have that, you have reliability and you have affordability. Then the price will come down.
Yeah. Let me bring in Jimmy, but Jimmy, before you come in here, so Mr. Neyor, right now in Monrovia, there's a lot of cries about electricity. Like even just 3, 4, 5 months ago, it wasn't like that, right? And people will tell you, oh, before the war, we had 24/7, or we have a lot of time where we have electricity. Even in places as far as Greenville, you have electricity. What happened? What is happening now? And even compared to few months ago or a year ago, why is the electricity business more problematic today than it was few months ago? What's happening? What changed?
Well, I tell you, I see. I was advisor on the transition team. See, advisor on the transition team. I saw some of the issues, some of the problems across the energy sector, from NOCA to LPRC to LEC to the regulatory agency to the Liberia a rural and renewable energy agency. So I saw all of that and some of the problems that we have had. And it comes to this. You have to put in people of competence and integrity into these different agencies within the energy sector. It has to be. You cannot have one way or the other. They have to have the technical competence and to go along with that, the integrity. Of course, within the past administration, there was just pockets of people who met those qualifications, and so that was a major problem. And when you do that, then you have a domino effect, and the whole thing is unstable. And when you don't have stability of management, you don't have competence, you don't have integrity, and you just have an organization that has low productivity and low output, and that's what happened across it. And with the change of government, people who are already incompetent, because when you're competent, you are loyal, you want to do the best for your country, even with a change of government. So when a change of government came in, these already incompetent people just drop the ball. They just want to, some deserted and some just stop working. And so you have all of these serious crises coming across the sector. But good, people being put in place now by President Boycott, and the things are taking shape. It will stabilize in a little while.
That's what I was saying. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
Yes. When they start with people, when you have this type of change, there are people who naturally would be fighting for different jobs and different positions. That has been is a natural event that has been happening, but it will subside. It cannot continue indefinitely. It has a dead end, and we just hope that the dead end will be sooner rather than later. And when that happens, then people will start work when the government is fully formed. Right now, things are some of the places, deputies and assistants are not in place. So when that happens, some of the boards are not met. When they are fully constituted and confirmed and meet, then things will start to pick up. and hopefully then solutions can start being put into place. And we'll be around to assist to providing some of those solutions and some of the recommendations that will move forward so that the mistakes that were made in the past will not be made again, that we won't continue this cycle of paralysis or redundant analysis and just get the same old all the time. We need to do something better for our country and for our people.
Jimmy?
Yeah, you know, Chris, we have a saying in Liberia. We say, you know, dry meat sweet, but what you'll be eating while the meat dry. There have been talk and suggestions now. We hear it from the current head at LEC that for now we should purchase a power from CLSG. Now, relatively, it appears that CLSG can produce power at a lower cost than even, of course, lower than what they're using for generators or batteries or whatever now. So what is your idea about a temporary fix while we get prepared to join the West African power pool in furnishing power to the rest of the West African coast? What should we do in the meantime? Do you agree with purchasing from the CLSG, and then that will require building more infrastructure for distribution lines, even if we want to do it, because that is what's missing in our grid right now?
Well, I'll tell you, Moni is a very good friend of mine. We have been known each other for a very long time. And like I stated earlier, Moni desire to help with the energy sector. He got an understanding of the problems besetting the sector. When I was energy advisor and head of the secretariat for the Simple River Task Force, Moni was on that, and we talk a lot. He saw some of the issues that I had, some of the problems that we had. And he's traveled with us as head of the Chamber of Commerce. So we had a very good working relationship over the years from our interaction. And I was glad to see him go on to the Millennium Corporation and to be part of LSE and be chairman of the board and currently CEO. But you know, pardon?
Does Money have the expertise for, as head of LEC?
What, it's not mine to determine that. I think he has some understanding. It's not mine to determine the expertise of that.
You know what it takes, right? You know what is required of that kind of portfolio.
Yeah, he's not an engineer. He's not an energy expert per se, but he has been there. He's a manager. So in some instances that would be good, but in when you need high end technical competence, he may be lacking or may depend on his technical people more often. So it depends on what you want to do. So I'm not going to go into whether he's competent or not, but I can tell you that I know him very well, and he has a desire to effect change. On the issue of there are two things. There's a desire to do something. You can have the desire, and also there's a capacity to do it. And so there are two things. You can have all the desire in this world to drive to fly an airplane, but if you don't have the capacity, you don't have the training, you don't have the competence, you don't have the experience to do it, you cannot fly it.
Right.
My son is a pilot, and so he went through years of training to become a captain at Delta Airlines.
Mhm.
So and so when you're the captain of the ship like LEC, is you can have the desire, but if you need to have an in-depth understanding
Right.
of the sector. And this is one of the problems that I like to point out. In putting people to drive the ship, to drive the train, uh, it's you have to have people who would have in-depth understanding because to solve a problem. You got to have a thorough understanding of what the problem is. In all forms, all sides of the problem, the front, the back, an in-depth understanding of the problem. And for you to have that in-depth understanding of the problem, you must have had some prior training or some experience related to the problem, whether it's energy, whether it's agriculture, whether it's health. You cannot have someone in there who, that's why you don't put people with very little experience to man the ship, to be the head of the institution. It has to be someone who has some experience along with the integrity to get there. So then you have an in-depth understanding of the problem. And then the second thing to solve the problem, you got to have the capacity to solve the problem. You understand it and you have the capacity, or where you can find the capacity to solve the problem. So these are some of the fundamental issues that we have. And that's what I like to do when I run LEC or the National Oil Company. I've formed people that will help me to run those organizations. I did not put in there's also Basel people. In fact, LEC, I never had one Basel man to be deputy managing director. In because I just believe in getting the best. And the same at the National Oil Company. I stay away from that. I get competence and people that can help us solve problems. So one of my recommendations in the paper I wrote in 2022, when we're having the same dry season problem under the WIA administration in 2022, I said the immediate solution is it's hard for me to recommend that, but that's what we have because we should have been giving power into which people should have been putting power into the WAP line, but we have to get power from them. It's the best solution now. And that's what the basis of President Boyka, going to Cote d'Ivoire to make sure that we got the short-term solution is to do that.
If you get it from Ivory Coast.
Yes, it's the best option we have. Because we dropped the ball. We're not visionary enough to do our hard. And this is from 2008, 2009 when I did our recommendation that look, the WAP line is coming. Let's build Mount Coffee. The St. Paul River Basin upstream. You see, Mount Coffee is the last of those cascaded hydro plants. It's the last. Up on the St. Paul River. So all the way upstream Lofa. And also the reservoir is linked with agriculture because you use it for irrigation. Yeah. And so it has, then you can also do fish farming, shrimp farming, you can do boating, you can have recreation, so many benefits, residual benefits from that reservoir upstream. And so it's a worldwide investment that we have to pursue, but we didn't pursue that.
Let's look at alternative energy sources because we've been trying with this Mount Coffee, hydro for so long. What are some of the sources that we can tap into for alternative energy sources that we can use?
Well, we have solar, which is immediate, and wind. We have to look at wind along the coastal.
Would it be more expensive or
what? Oh, they have become less expensive, especially when you have economy of scale. That's why I mentioned to you about the solar powers and commercial based intervention. Uh, the small one are the more costly, but if you the economy of scale, the wind power, if you start off from 5 megawatt, it makes some sense. The more you increase it, the better it is. But you have to do all of the survey for the coastline and to make sure that then geothermal is another possibility for power generation, and 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 so biomass. We had a project with BRE, Buchanan Renewable, for biomass to use some of the old raw trees, or you can do your own tree farm to produce a tree to feed into a biomass plant. Is why you use a wood, to produce steam that turn a turbine to produce electricity. That is another option. So all of the options are available, especially in the age of climate change, and you can do it. You can get carbon credit, from other these. The more you do to reduce the the um, uh, the environmental degradation, the better it is for Liberia and for the rest of the world. So I was a lead climate change negotiator for Liberia, leading to the uh, 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 some of the negotiations that led to the Paris Climate Agreement. So I understand some of the issues at length, especially when it comes to carbon and the utilization of our forest, so that we can maintain our forest. Cutting off and sending them abroad, we can
Are we losing you?
Yeah,
we can
we kind of losing him.
we can try to
Okay.
make sure that we utilize the tree. But also produce our rainfall.
Your
So
voice.
those are some of the renewable options, Dennis, that we have, alternative energy. And that's why we have the Rural Renewable Energy Agency. And I think
I
the
was about to ask
the
you.
new leadership at the regulatory agency will be emphasizing that a whole lot.
I was about to ask you about that. In one of your papers that I read, you talk about merging LPRC and NUCA, right? And I also read about this, or it was only this year that I heard about this Rural Renewable Energy Agency. I'm like, okay, you have to form a separate group for this. I mean, wouldn't that be part of LEC? And then we look for different sources. We have to. What is this Rural Renewable Energy Agency? Do we have anything like Rural Renewable Energy in Liberia?
Oh yeah, they are working. They are functional. They've been there for a while.
What are they doing? I thought we should be merging these things. Like you said, we should collapse. We should merge LEC and NOCA. Should we? So talk to me about that. How this is that duplication of function, or we just wasting money?
I know, but you have to. It's a bit of what we call economic analysis and comparative analysis for the Rural uh, Energy Agency. That has to be on its own, separated from LEC, because LEC is a conventional utility and is commercial, and also because we're going to deregulation, where we had a regulatory agency. LEC could not have the responsibility for development of renewable energy within the country. That is responsibility. It's a conventional commercial entity. So you wanted to make sure it concentrated on what it was established for, what a new role it was to play. So that was its role to play within the new energy environment, the deregulated energy environment. So the Rural and Renewable Energy Agency was then in accordance with our climate agenda and our sustainable development agenda, to make sure that it developed throughout the country renewable energy, but on small scale for rural applications. That its role. And because of what it does, it has a lot of what we call um, funding,
Yeah.
external funding, are supposed to be funded if it is run efficiently and do all of the proposals correctly. It should have a lot of money in there to perform some of those tasks in renewable energy. So it's committed to that. That's what it's all about, the Rural and Renewable Energy Agency. Now, on the part of the merger of LPRC and NOCA, now NOCA as is now with the new the new oil and gas law, most of the power that NOCA had now been relegated to the Liberia Petroleum Regulatory Authority. So NOCA is basically now an oil company that's supposed to go out there and get all black itself and try to do other things to 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 uh, to become a real oil and gas company. So what we proposed back then was to integrate the upstream and downstream, because LPRC sort of do the no carb sort of found it all, and LPRC
Refine.
um, um, do the refining. So but there's no um, oil discovery now in Liberia. So what we need to do is to put together these two entities. And the reason we recommended that is we do the model, and the model is when you put both of them together, um, what benefits the country gets. And when the two entities separate, if you put the sum of of those two entities together, it is less than the sum of the combined entity, their totality. And one of the big reasons that was attracted to put them together was the building of an export-oriented refinery. LPRC is Liberia Petroleum Refining. That area there is refining. That refining is not for storage and just to bring in and store. No. But over the years, again, I would say managing directors are come, they get the license and people get comfortable. Nobody ever had a vision to rebuild the refinery. It has never been, decades now, the refinery has never been built. So when I was at NOCA, we got into a relationship with ENOC, the Emirate National Oil Corporation. One in there had some very good discussion. On one of the trips, I think Sherry and Adela were with me. And what we decided to do, along with Kuwait, is to build an export-oriented refinery at the port of Buchanan. And that could be possible when you and more attractive if you have LPRC and the NOCA together to become an oil company with both upstream and downstream division. And to do that, very simple. We discussed that with President Sally. She was on board with that. And what do you do to integrate it? Too very, very simple, very easy. LPRC is not statutory. It's the only public corporation that is not statutory. That means LPRC was never made by law. There was no enactment by the national legislature to create LPRC. LPRC was incorporated under the Liberian business law by the Ministry of Finance. And I think way back when Ellen Johnson was deputy minister there, they incorporated LPRC and as a company under the Liberian business law. That's why the managing director of LPRC is never confirmed by the Senate because it's not statutory. So the president appoints LPRC managing director, you go and knock to the door and get in and take over because there's no confirmation required. So what you do in that instant is that you just do an article of dissolution. The Minister of Finance, the president instructs the Minister of Finance to do an article of dissolution. And LPRC is dissolved right there. And the president then take the asset of LPRC and infuse it into the National Oil Company of Liberia as additional part of the entity. And they become one. So the LPRC then will become the downstream division of the National Oil Company of Liberia. So you have a general manager. So like the managing director of LPRC, or who is supposed to be the managing director, would then become the senior vice president and general manager of the downstream division of the National Oil Company. And you have one, and you get to work and towards building the re-engage with the Kuwait Oil Corporation, and then with the EGNOC, the Emirate National Oil Corporation, to build an export-oriented refinery at the port of Buchanan that will bring jobs, that will bring storage tanks around the country, free. You have access. Those are the type of things you talk about. But you know what? Those who are the importers.
Yeah,
those are importers, they only want that because they get in Nigeria, but they have to overcome it for Dangote to build a refinery in Nigeria. It was not an easy task because those who import and don't want that to happen.
Right. But so let's get our audience involved here. They have some questions here that we want to. Let me start with River Says Pro. He said, when you say energy crisis, what specifically are we talking about? Gas, electricity, weatherization, furnace, hot water? And then River Says Pro also said, okay, this one. He said most of the energy companies in the United States are privatized with some government intervention or government merely for regulation. Why can't we privatize LEC? That's his question.
What? Yeah, that is possible. But let me just tell you, not all the energy companies and the utilities in the country, in the United States are private. Not all of them. You have a lot of municipal utilities. You have what they call cooperatives within certain local areas. There are cooperatives. You have like Los Angeles area. They have fair power by their own municipal utility. So and the whole area there. So it's not true that every utility in the United States is private, but everyone is subjected. Everyone, whether private or non-private, subjected to regulation.
Right.
The regulatory authority is the one that set rate. And one of the things that they do, they don't fund your inefficiency. If you are inefficient, you don't go to the utility regulator and say you want to charge a higher rate. They won't allow you. They allow you only to charge rate that will make you solvent, that make you you take care of depreciation and your profit, but it's how it works.
What's stopping us from advertising LEC?
Yeah, but you have to create an environment to advertise. Put LEC off for sale now, and see how many people will come out to buy LEC. You have to contain that power theft. You have to take care of government payments of bill. Two critical areas. And when I was talking about political will, about the power sector, tell me why government does not make provision to pay their energy bill. That's number one problem.
Chris, I thought you were going to mention that a long time ago because when we were, that was one of the real problems we had, government paying their bill. That
Yeah.
was one of the outstanding debts we had. And we do see there are line items in the budget for electricity, but for some reason or not, it never gets dispersed, and LEC has to bear the brunt. As a managing director, how do we resolve an issue like that as the managing director of LEC, where the government does not pay their bill? How do you resolve that? And everything, all your profits and everything are dependent on your revenue collection.
Yeah, one of the arrangements we had, I discussed with the finance minister at that time, was to let the government finance our debt. We took loan from the African Development Bank for the transmission lines and obligations to USAID and to other donor countries or entities. And so the debt, we struck a deal with government to service the debt in lieu of the payment of their bills to us. So we did not have to worry about servicing those debt. And so we just concentrated on the collection. And that's why we had to reduce commercial losses. And I introduced the methodology in which we reduce commercial losses tremendously. Because like I said, we're preparing to construct the St. Paul River Basin dam. So to do that, we have to make it very attractive, especially mining companies that we're talking with to kind of grandfather into taking power from us. And so, and to work with us to do that arrangement. In fact, the new arrangement that was made in 2009 and presented to the cabinet, 2008, 2009 was a PPP, public-private partnership. So where the mining concessions, they themselves will take equity position within the entity. And so we create an enabling environment, then you privatize LEC. But what you can start with right away, instead of privatizing the whole LEC, is to do what we call, I would say, the indigenous investment, like group of Liberians get together and take areas of the LEC landscape, the LEC territory.
Like what?
You give somebody nuclear town, and let them take care of nuclear, privatize nuclear town, and pencil, give pencil to start like that. Piece by piece.
Everybody with one mom on point.
Yeah, that's true. That's what happens when everybody wants the lucrative position. You see, you're talking about appointment in government. A lot of people, they want a lucrative positions. They don't want place to go to create to make it work. You go to a damn place and turn it around. And that's when I went to Noka, nobody knew Noka. But when I left, everybody wanted Noka. Because you go in and you transform. And that's how it is. You should go into where you are needed most, where you have expertise, and you can make a change, not just to go around looking for all the lucrative positions to go to. And so you want to make a change in the distribution network, push you not just look at Mamba Point and where it's easy, a lot of high paying and high income for the embassies and so on, but go to the communities where you have some challenges and you change that around, then you become a change agent. You do not become a change agent when you go to Mama Point, and because there's not much there to change.
Thank you. Time is fast spent. We don't want to keep you too long. Let me bring in a few more comments. Admiral Salif say, I heard part of the problem has to do with challenges with connections, distribution, and usage measurements. For example, metering versus prepaid system. How do we know how much power large customers like the GOL and commercial customers, how much they're using? And he continues, what are the binding constraints preventing us from diversifying our power sources?
Yeah, and that's how we've been talking about the diversification of the power generation. When you create the referee will be more of a referee, the regulator, the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission. They are being put together now. I think the young man who appointed there, a very smart, competent young man. He will have a confirmation during this week. So when they get in auto diversification, they will initiate and play a more meaningful role in having the private sector involved. In fact, they will make sure that LEC contain power theft. They will make sure that the rate is affordable. They will make sure that they do not fund LEC inefficiency. You have to set a rate at certain amount, especially within our ECOWAS community. You can we are the highest so far within the ECOWAS community. We have to move away from that. So the regulatory authority will enhance diversification. Metering of government entities are there. The government knows how much they consume, but they're just not paying. That's all. And again, there are new technologies to help contain power theft, and those need to be introduced as well. So there's a lot of work to be done in the sector.
Yeah. Sam Wallow said $96 million solar farm project was funded yesterday. He said a solar field project was funded or approved yesterday as part of President Bouakai's effort. Is there something are you aware of that?
Yeah, in one of my proposals many times ago, I proposed that the solar farm. In fact, there was the WIA government. I told them to visit one of those facilities that in there. Even sending an article where the generating plant were augmented with solar plant, especially a hydro plant. And I made a similar proposal for the Rawas International Airport, where there was constant power outages. I said, what would be done is a solution. We can put right at the airport, 5 megawatt solar farm with adequate batteries. And you solve that problem of power outage at the airport, creating some safety issue with aircraft, and you put that to rest. So all those solutions are solutions that I'm fully aware of, that I've discussed and recommended years ago.
One time Firestone used to feed Robert's Fee, and I think we used to butt bills with Firestone at one point during the dry season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, at some point that was not very reliable. What was more reliable was the bond mile exchange with LEC, where during the rainy season we gave them, and the exchange was such that because our hydropower was cheaper, we gave them for every 1.3 kilowatt hour we gave them during the rainy season. They gave for 1 kilowatt during the dry season, and that helped to contain the outage and the blackout during the dry season for us. So that's why I said the outage has been getting worse, progressively. So as before then, when I was there, at least it was very minimum, because we had all kinds of mechanisms and creative ways to solve that problem. But right now it's just a tough situation. So the best solution, while before the solar takes some time, it's not as long as the hydro construction, but it takes some time. While we're doing that, the WAP transmission line would be the best solution for now to get power from Cote d'Ivoire.
We owing them, so where the money will come from to pay first?
Well, that's why the president went there. I think he struck some sort of arrangement with them. So I haven't discussed with him the details of that, but I think there was some arrangement. I think and it's a workable solution. We have to work towards that if you want. But the main is to pay. You cannot well, you can get $1 of power from Cote d'Ivoire, and then you lose 30 cents to power tech.
Exactly.
So
So they got to patch that first, right?
You have to take care of that, and then also take care of government pay its own bill. That's another 20 cents on every dollar.
That's
So
right.
you got 50% of the power that you generate or you buy not being paid for. How is that sustainable?
Then you owe 13 million.
Yeah, it's not sustainable at all. Those are some of the issues that need to be addressed. So you need create a solution.
Finance Minister Stewart said we're selling power back to Africa. So I don't know what became of that. But Jimmy, what's your final question? We're about to close. If you have any
I think you have. We touched most of everything. One thing we didn't touch is, I read the report where they mentioned you several times. The World Bank report that and they did an assessment on Liberia's energy situation from 2010 to 2040 and how they should grow. And one thing they mentioned that access to electricity in Liberia is the lowest in the region, even lower than Sierra Leone, and that has also added to the situation and even the cost. You mentioned that the cost of producing electricity in Liberia is relatively higher than anywhere else. So you did mention a solar solution. Is that will that be the solution so that we can at least have people in the rural areas, because when everybody can't come to Monrovia, at least so we can at least start it to get industry and economies moving in the rural areas? Will that be your suggestion, that we go with that route as a alternative energy solution there?
Yes, Jimmy. Yes, but let me just caution here. On a small scale for rural applications, solar is not very impactful in terms of industrialization, in terms of factories, in terms of wood workshops and all that kind of stuff. On a large scale, only on a commercial scale you can have that. So what we need to do in terms of renewable is our best long-term solution. And what God has blessed us with is tremendous amount of rain. That's why we coordinate this so that our trees cannot be discriminately cut down. We can have proper reforestation, that we use degraded land only for oil palm and cocoa and all those type of things, rather than cutting down our rich tropical forest that brings up heavy amount of rain. The rain itself is a blessing to us, both for agriculture and for power production. So these are the things that what we call economic planners, those within the Ministry of Agriculture. And again, Ministry of Agriculture, I must say, is one of the well-staffed agencies. The minister, the deputy ministers, that are very good. And I know that one is an energy economist, and I know my very good friend that Harry Williams, deputy for technical. So we get an understanding of some of the issues in agriculture, and at the EPA, we need someone at FDA, and my very good friend is there. I look forward to working with him so that we can use our forest resource that God has blessed us with for the ultimate benefit of our people, and not just for the pocket of a few people. That's what I firmly believe, and that's my goal. I will be on the outside, but I will make sure that we do the right thing as much as I can.
Thank you. Thomas Cannon said there is an ongoing advocacy for the GOL to budget for paying its bills. If this happens, then it would need to start providing annual budgetary support to the LEC. every time we provide budgetary support to the LEC, it should be a loan that LEC should pay back in the future. This will help pressure the LEC management to perform efficiently to pay back. I mean, what LEC is supposed to be creating revenue and we're giving them money?
I never heard of that. I wish I had government giving me subsidy when I was at LEC. That never happened. We indirectly subsidize government, and so on. I don't know whether it's being done now, but it never was like that before, especially when I was managing director. And where the government, I think they sometimes mistaken the LERC with LEC. LERC is a regulator, the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission. That is funded by government. So until they can get on their own, because the utilities supposed to make some contribution, just like the LTA, the Liberia Telecommunication Authority. They get fees, they charge certain fees to the GSM companies, and that's how they get funded. And so the regulatory authority, they're brand new, so they don't have much funds. So the government subsidizes their operation. The same with the Liberia Petroleum Regulatory Commission. The government subsidizes their operation, or should, until they can start generating some revenue when they get into bid rounds and so on.
And talking about privatizing LEC, they said in Ganta, like this young man Floyd Toma, I think it's Jungle Power, said they're doing very well, but energy or electricity in Ganta is very reliable. Why can't LEC learn? So maybe that's giving credence to privatization, because they're doing well in Ganta, so you have more stable supply of electricity in Ganta compared to Monrovia. Is that something we can learn from that?
Yeah, I commend that, and I commend that Harley is doing very well in Jungle Power and the other lip energy. Because and the same tone, I recommend that you take sections of Monrovia and privatize it. Let people organize and take it over, and we can start the privatization from there. Ganta is one good example. It's like taking just a section of Monrovia and giving it to someone to manage, and so he's doing very well, and we commend that, and we need to use that as a pilot project and just duplicate it in the LEC territories and other parts of the country.
Thank you, Mr. Neyor. Thank you very much. My final question to you as we close will be, like in a summary, right? What is our energy challenge and how that problem can be mitigated? Why this problem keep happening and how can we solve it? Do we have what you call the political will to do this?
Yeah, I think with President Boycott, we have some hope for that. But I like to say this: political will begins with getting competent people into these critical areas. If you want to solve a problem, give it to people who can solve the problem. If they get in the medical field, they have specialists. Mm-hmm. If you have a urology problem, you don't go to somebody who is a gastro physician, and it's the same way. You have critical problems within these sectors. I'm not just talking about energy sector alone, across the health sector, the education sector. And so you got to sit, analyze, talk with sectoral experts. So what are your thoughts? What do you think about this? What do you think I would? And then you get the brightest and the best into those positions, and they are supporting cast those who are underneath them. And then that's the first step towards solving some of these problems. you go with it the Lee Kuan Yew way. And his book, I recommend that to all of our leaders across the country, and the entire cabinet, from third world to first. Read our book and talk about. That's why I don't even come with compensating people highly. Pay them well. Um, people try to make noise about money captain making $17,000-$18,000. It's to me that is insignificant. You look at output.
You're right.
What problem are you solving? What are you commensurate with? What compensation you are getting?
Right. So you understand
and that's
why
what
they are
Singapore
complaining.
did. So I think move forward. How we can solve our problem is to put the country first and get the right people into positions. And I think that what President Boga is trying to achieve here.
Yeah, but you understand why people will complain about money captain making 17, 20,000 because the people are in the heat. The output is very low, right?
Well, I
There's
said
no
the
current.
compensation got to be commensurate with performance.
Right.
Exactly.
Jimmy, you're closing.
Well, thanks, Chris, for coming over. We want to invite you back for round 2 of this, and we look forward to seeing you now, because as we all know, even all the technology, internet, all of it is predicated on the availability of electricity. So if electricity is down, it is stifling economic growth throughout the country. So we want to bring you back to again, so we can talk about electricity and technology and the other industries that depending on it, and how we can best address the situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bwaka said, roll. And I want to say energy. And that one is important, but I think energy is even more important.
Energy is at the top of the economic food chain.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Join me this Sunday. I'm going to be interviewing Frank Atus. He's the head of the Liberia movie industry. He just did the Breaking of the Bush. We'll have him right here Sunday at 6 p.m. so that we can talk to him. You don't want to miss that. Well, Mr. Neyor, thank you so much for your time. Jimmy, thank you. Also want to thank our viewers for coming. Always watch Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we end with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and God bless you.
Thank you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.